Hey, how you doing, superhumans? Welcome back to our new lecture. And in this lecture, we will be starting on with our new module, that is mobile IP. Before going on further with what we are going to be teaching, and before going on further with the lectures, let's have a quick overview about mobile IP. So, first, in the first lecture, we will be covering about why do we need mobile IP. Things were going well with original IP addressing, but why did the need arise for mobile IP? We will talk about that in our first lecture. Then in our second lecture, we will be talking about uh, what is the permanent address. Permanent address was the one which was used by the original IP addressing, the IP addressing that we had in the past, the traditional IP addressing. Then we'll talk about a new concept, that is care of address. Care of address is nothing but, let's say that this is a network 1 and this is network 2. Now let's say that there is a host 1 which is a part of this network 1, which is a permanent part of this network 1. Now let's say that this host 1 is having permanent ID, permanent address. That's what that permanent address I'm writing with PIP, permanent IP address. Now when this host is going to go in the second network, let's say that this host decides on one day that I will be going on for a little bit of time from network 1 to network 2. So this host moves over here, and the IP addressing that this host will be having at this particular point in the network 2 will be called as care of address. Now we need to remember this thing, that the IP address within the network 1 would not be done away with. It will remain with the host, but it is having an additional care of address as well. What the care of address is, what is network 1, what is network 2, what is host, and everything we'll be covering on in our later on lectures, but it's just an overview. I wanted to tell what all we are going to cover. Now we'll be knowing about what is a home agent. Home agent is a router that is present in the network 1. So let's say that there's a router in the network 1, we'll call this as a home agent. And foreign agent is a router that is the main router that is there in the network 2, in any of the foreign networks. So this is what we call as home network for the host 1, and this we call as foreign network, because whenever we are going to travel to some foreign country, we'll go there as a tourist, not we don't live over there. If we are just moving around for the tourism part, then we are not going to live over there. So we call that particular network as foreign network, and the router in that network as foreign agent. Now moving on further, we'll talk about how the communication happens. For example, now that the complete host, this host has moved from here to here, we'll talk about the fact that how will things work for this host which has moved from here, from this network 1 to network 2. We'll talk about that how this host 1 is going to get a new care of address when it is going to enter the network 2. How will it get the data? How will it transmit the data to the other hosts? We will talk about that. Okay, now this is all included in the 3 phases. For example, whenever it is going to go into the new network, then there will be some agent discovery. Agent discovery means that it will discover the router 2, the router of the foreign network. Then there will be registration. This host 1 is going to register itself with the foreign agent, that I have come into your network, please give me some address of your network. That temporary address we call as care of address. We'll talk about this later on as well, but for now just take it as a pinch of salt that you have learned a few things. We'll talk about later about that as well. Now, as I've already talked about to you, that we'll be talking about what is data transfer, or how is the data going to transfer. Let's say that there is a host in some network 3. This is network 3, and there is some host 2 in this network. Now, and there is router 3 in this network. Now, how is this host going to transfer the data to the host 1? Initially, if there would not have been any network 2, let's say that there was no network 2, Now initially host 1 it was very easy because host 1 was having the address of itself, source address of itself, and the destination address of the host 1. This was the destination address of host 1 that the host 2 was carrying with itself. Now when this host 1 moves away from the network 1 to network 2, the destination address with the host 2 remains the same. It does not know whether host 1 has moved to the network 2 or not. Now we'll see how host 1 is still able to communicate with H1, the host 1, and how host 1 is able to transfer the data to the host 2. We'll talk about that in the later on video. So this was all that we are going to cover, and then finally in the last lecture we'll be covering with every particular technology that we have. There are certain shortcomings, there are certain disadvantages of that technology as well. Why do we use that technology? The reason for that is that it solves a problem. It solves a particular problem that was there. But then it also has got its own shortcomings, its own disadvantages. The reason for us using this mobile IP is that its advantages outweigh its disadvantages. Any technology which we are using these days is just because the advantages of using that technology has outweighed the disadvantage of using that technology. Advantage of using that technology has outweighed the disadvantage of using that technology. Because of this, we are using mobile IP. We'll talk about what are the shortcomings of mobile IP in the later on videos. With this, I end the overview of this mobile IP. Hope so you move on to the next lecture and see that as well. Bye.